Okay, it's 2 o'clock. Call the meeting to order and want to acknowledge the great weekend we had, the Settler Day weekend, and appreciate all the people that contributed to it. It was a very successful event and that, and we had staff and community come together to put on a great weekend. So I think something for our town to be very proud of, the way Settlers Days came across this time, and certainly appreciate everything that went into that event. So the next thing we're up on deck is the homecoming weekend in August. So take a breath in between two events here, but we're fortunate to have such talent in our town to bring such wonderful events together. We have the conflict of interest declaration, item 1.1. Is there anything on today's agenda that presents a conflict or a pecuniary interest to anybody? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Councillor Lloyd moves the agenda as presented. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Councillor Chapman hopes to be with us between now and 3 o'clock. So. All right, and then we have item 3.1, regular council meeting minutes of June 24th, 2019. Are there any errors or omissions or anything coming to attention of anybody?
Move to adopt the minutes as presented.
Okay, Councillor Holm moves the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And we have item 4.1. And Kaylin will deal with updated timeline with regard to the birds of prey, the West Nile situation.
Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this report is to, first of all, update Council on the completion timeline of the investigation taking place in response to the bird deaths that occurred at the Alberta Birds of Prey Centre in August 2018. The second part is to request that Council consider establishing a special Council meeting sometime near the end of July 2019, so the results of the investigation can be shared publicly, as opposed to waiting until the next regularly scheduled Council meeting of September 2019. So with respect to timeline, the primary reason for delay is that the investigators are still waiting on additional information external to the organization. There is, however, a high degree of confidence that the report will be fully complete by the end of July 2019. And in fact, I'm being told July 17th as the completion date, but just to give you a bit of a cushion in that timeline. Given that the deadline for completion of the investigation has been pushed back a month from the initial projections, I can advise the following. Information has been gleaned in the interim. Administration has been in contact with the Alberta Birds of Prey Centre regarding the water levels of the ponds they lease from the town. The Birds of Prey Centre has opened the water valve that connects the town's west stormwater pond, located west adjacent to the Birds of Prey Centre, to the ponds located within the Birds of Prey Centre. As of the date of this report, the town has been advised by the Birds of Prey Centre that water is running through the small ponds that the centre leases from the town. Second of all, there is no evidence of stagnation within any of the stormwater ponds located on the northwest portion of the town of Coaldale. So in terms of being able to close the loop on this matter before fall, my question through to Council is whether there'd be consideration to having a special Council meeting sometime in July. To get the conversation started, I've listed as an example a couple of potential dates: July 22nd, 23rd, 24th, or the 25th, 29th, or 30th. Council is free to expand this list as best meets their schedules, but that concludes the update in response to this report.
Are there any questions through to our CAO on the report itself? From the different email threads and that, it seems that perhaps maybe toward the end would be better, like July 29th or something.
I won't be available on the 29th or 30th. We'll be
Oh, okay.
out on the West Coast.
And any other suggestions then?
Anytime for me.
Is it just who cannot make it on 29th other than Councillor Holm then?
Try.
Can we set, would everybody be agreeable for the 29th then? Okay, well, should be, what time of day should it be? When we do the report, how do you envision releasing the results, Kaylin? Is it kind of a report that is better for council to take in and kind of review it and that before we have go forward strategies on it, or should it be evening kind of a thing where more people can attend, or how do you envision that working out?
It's the report's going to be the report, so council, like any agenda package, will get the report in advance of the meeting. But the intent is to have the authors of the report, the consultants, actually come to Coaldale to present on the findings to council in a public forum. Time of day, I believe some of the consultants are from Edmonton, so depending on what mode of transportation they're using to get here, they may prefer earlier in the day, but they did say they will work around council's schedule. So,
Councillor Holm? Oh, Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, if it's going to be during the week, I would prefer in the evenings because I can't get away from work.
So at 5 o'clock, be too late then?
Nope, 5 would be all right.
Okay. He will set the date, maybe a motion to establish July 29th as the special council meeting date with a start time of 5 p.m. in council chambers. Councillor Simpson moves that. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And then Cameron, we're up to 4.2.
Is that good? Thank you. So I wanted to present this report on behalf of Spencer Croyle, who put this all together for us. Basically, what we're providing council with today is a plan for public participation as it relates to the construction of the multi-use recreation facility. Council's had an opportunity to review this, so I won't go over it in too much detail. There's a lot of information presented in the report itself. Fundamentally, what we're doing here is providing sort of an overview and a guideline for how further public participation will be handled with respect to the specifics of the recreation facility itself. So as council may recall, there was something called the Sport and Recreation Working Group, which was established some time ago. That was a committee. Included various members, administration participated, certain members of council would have participated, and members of the general public were invited to participate as well and attend. And over the course of the time with that group, a number of decisions were made or were recommendations were made, I should say, from that group based on some of the work they had done, some of the public participation that they had done, a survey with over 800 responses, for example, with respect to the types of recreational amenities that people in Coaldale were interested in. And then based on their findings, they made a report which council accepted back in 2018. And which was used as part of the 2019-2021 capital budget with the approval of the multi-use recreation facility, which is found in that document. So what remains with respect to this facility is to get into some of the details of what will be included in a multi-use recreation facility. Obviously, we have a budget. We have some concepts in mind. Those concepts are, to a certain extent, general in nature. There's a bevy of things that can fit in these types of facilities, each one in each different municipality being a little bit different. So this is an opportunity for us to further refine the plan and make sure that it's going to meet the needs of Coaldale now and in the future as we continue to grow. So what we're providing here today with respect to this report is an overview of the plans for how further public consultation on this project will occur. Specifically, statement here on page 7, the intent of the public participation plan is to provide additional detail regarding the planning of the engagement activities and to ensure context-appropriate tools and techniques are implemented throughout the project. This is designed in line with the 5 steps outlined in the International Association for Public Participation, the IAP2, which we've used for other public consultation work here in the town and which is used for appropriate public participation planning. You'll notice the chart above that section here showing that the various work that's been done to date and the proposal for additional work, including user group specific community outreach, which will occur in September and October of 2019, following a kickoff which will occur this summer, and following that general community outreach, taking place or beginning in October of 2019. So all of this, basically, what this comes down to is to say that we'll engage both members of the public generally to get their impact in terms of what they'd like to see in this type of facility, and also that we'll work with specific user groups, for example, the local soccer authority and those types of things, to make sure that any decisions that are made with respect to how the facility will be laid out and what type of amenities will be in there will meet the needs of the people that are ultimately utilizing the facility, to try to make sure we build the best possible facility, we get the best return on our investment. If you turn to page 9 of the report, highlight the table here. So description of the overall project provided the design and construction of a multi-use recreation facility for the community that is ultimately paired with the new high school. We should be clear that the construction of these 2 items is not necessarily in tandem. Ideally, those would be the case, but these are, from our perspective, we look at them as 2 projects. The decision being made as to what to include as sport and recreation amenities and activities within the new multi-use facilities. We outlined the decision makers, scope of impact, so on, a timeline, so on and so forth. So again, the purpose of this plan is to provide council with an overview of what administration is planning with respect to public participation on this project. We think that given the substantial investment council has made on this project and the fact that it's something that's going to be sort of a keystone within our community in terms of being sort of the largest and certainly most recent recreation investment that this town has made in itself. We want to make sure that we get as much public support and public input into the project as possible, and so this is our plan for achieving that. So what we're looking for here today, from council here today, is basically an approval of this plan, either as written or subject to your amendment.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Any questions of the presenter by members of council? Okay. That's a sign of a good report, I guess. Yeah. So then you're looking for a motion to adopt the plan as outlined.
Correct.
Councillor Simpson?
I'll make that motion. Approve it out as presented.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you, Cam. Hey, wow, that's right on time. We organized that quite well, I think. So we have a delegation of the Copperheads for item 5.1. And Kalen, you want to introduce this item?
Mr. Mayor, so we do have a contingent joining us here from the Copperheads, so I gave them the option of sitting in the nice comfy seats in the back or being on TV in the front. So we'll see what choice they make, but either way is fine for our purposes. I'd like to start off by just recognizing the amount of work that the Copperheads have put into this proposal. In some ways, you know, I'm just the cherry picker that's they've done all the legwork, then I get the glory of the presentation. But this is something that they've been working on for over a year, perhaps a bit longer. And there's been a lot of research, as you can see from the attachments contained in your staff report, that they've done in order to provide a comprehensive proposal to the town and through to council. So the purpose of the report is to present to council a proposal submitted by the Coaldale Copperheads. And this is a proposal to offer a soft beverage service during Copperheads games that take place within Coaldale's arena. In November 2018, by way of background, the Copperheads made a formal request to the town for us to give consideration to allowing their organization to spearhead and operate a beverage service inside the Coaldale arena during Copperheads games. It's an important point of emphasis. It would just be for Copperheads games. As part of this request, they provided permitting information that they've obtained from the AGLC, information provided to them from an insurance provider, as well as an operational and security plan that would govern how they would administer this program in the town's facility should it be approved by council. From this initial proposal, the Copperheads have provided the following information that's included as attachments to the report. In this package before you, they've included a business plan, which deals with things like security, layout, insurance, how the beverage will be managed and regulated, and sales. It should be noted that the liquor license would be obtained by the Copperheads through the AGLC, so it would be in the Copperheads' name, not the town of Coaldale's. There's also information about the consultation efforts that they've undergone for those who attend their games, as well as a sampling of what's being done in other municipalities. Sometimes it's easier to look at what's happening elsewhere than to reinvent the wheel. So there's quite a detailed explanation of what's happening in other municipalities, how it's running, what they've learned, some adjustments that we could be the beneficiaries of. So in terms of next steps, there is lead time working with the AGLC. So from the date that council makes a decision for approval, for example, it'll be at least 8 weeks, possibly more, in terms of the timeline it'll take for the AGLC to process the requests. So in order to even get the clock started, a resolution from council giving them permission to operate this service in the arena would be required. From a logistical perspective, how this would work with the liquor license being in the Copperheads' name, they would have insurance. The town would be listed as an additional insurer, as a rider, and they would be leasing the entire facility from the town prior to and during the Copperheads games. So the security and the management requirements of this program, of this service, would be in the Copperheads jurisdiction, not the town of Coaldale's. I should also note that in receiving this information, there was an interdepartmental review done of the logistics. Last year, there was an initial walkthrough that we did with the fire department, who gave advice on access and egress, let them know at a high level what their requirements would be for approval. They looked at occupancy loads. We also have a fire alarm panel now in the arena. And as part of a condition for application to the AGLC, sign off from the fire department on their actual layout for this service is a requirement and a precondition. So although the fire department was involved at a high level providing this consultative advice at the front end, they're also going to have to sign off on the application as part of the submittal process when it's formally written down, the operation and the layout. So there are two main options that we've identified for council. Council's free to add to this list. Option one would be that council receive the report for information and decline the Copperheads' proposal to offer a beverage service during Copperheads games inside the Coaldale Arena at this time. And then option 2 would be that council grant the Copperheads permission to provide a soft alcohol beverage service during Copperheads games at the Coaldale Arena, with said permission to be conditional on the following: sign-off be obtained by the Coaldale and District Emergency Services Department, Copperheads retain and provide proof of insurance and list the town as an additional insured, that the liquor license through the AGLC be held by the Coaldale Copperheads organizations, and then there's a sub note here, if council so wishes, that this permission be for one season from September 2019 to April 2019, with a debrief assessment on how the service went prior to council committing to a longer term arrangement. So without going through all the details that they put together, that is included in the package. That's the high level snapshot on why we're here today. If you stump me, I do have 3 friends I can phone in the gallery here on some of the details. So I'm happy to turn the discussion back over to council.
Okay, Councilor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. Just one question. Has other areas been thought of for the serving table? Because it's just a little bit concerning that we're going to be blocking off all 4 exit doors with the serving, and human nature is you kind of stand there and have a chat with your friends as you're grabbing it. So just wondering if other options were looked at for the serving table.
You have to call a friend, or?
I'd like to phone a friend, yes.
Okay.
And thanks for spending some time and considering this. Yes, we looked at lots of options. Therefore, it took us over a year to put this together. And talking with the fire department, that seems to be the very best place to put it. And I think the way that the photographs are shown there is room for those doors. And I mean, long story short, in fact, right now, we sell our merchandise if you've been to our games right in that spot. And this actually will be more ergonomic and more goal-friendly than we were before. We just saw our merchandise across that opening right there. So yeah, there was a lot of thought was put into that because we knew that would be a major consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Or it's just as one of the referrals, like putting the license through, does the RCMP, are they sort of a referral body on that process anyway, or have they been kind of kept in the loop on the possible policing ramifications? I think they kind of have to look at the license anyway, don't they?
From what AGLC has informed us, if we got their support in a letter, that would be really the only requirement. It would be handy to have. It would be something that was a mandatory thing, and that was something we've discussed with him for sure.
So they sort of be in the loop on the process anyway, wouldn't they?
For sure.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
And to your point, Mr. Mayor, we've had some initial discussions with the Coaldale RCMP, and they basically said so long as it's following the law, their job is to enforce laws, not to give opinions on what they think of an activity. So regardless of which option council chose, they would look at it in the context of are all the proper laws being followed, and then depending on whether any particular decision heightens or reduces risk, is that going to affect how they schedule staffing to be in response to an initiative. That was kind of the high-level snapshot that was given to us.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that they weren't kind of in the dark about something happening and then, wondering why erratic driving was happening that after games are letting out or whatever. Not that I'm anticipating that, but, it's just so that they kind of have that heads up so that they can be appreciative of it. I don't anticipate any upsurge in bad behavior because of it or anything like that. It's just the point of them knowing that maybe a change of operation is happening so that they can, I think it was in your brief, you said that they'd be encouraged to come in and, be part inside of the building and whatnot too. So that, I think that's helpful. Kelly?
In all honesty, like every
Good.
And honestly, I can say this year they made it to one game because we called them to come. It's not something that they have on their radar, it seems like.
Yeah.
And maybe now it would encourage them to send the odd time instead of sitting,
Right.
you know, and, you know, we look forward to that. We would like to have that happening actually, so.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Home, you, okay, go ahead.
Again, this isn't something new to the Junior Hockey League as far as having liquor sales. Looks like the Copperheads have done their homework on this thing. So I would certainly like to make the motion the council goes with option 2, that we grant Copperheads permission to provide the soft alcohol beverage service during the Copperheads games. Sign off obtained by Alberta or Coaldale Emergency Services, proof of insurance, and that the liquor license through AGLC. And I think I would leave it at that. I don't believe we absolutely need to have a review after 1 year because, as I say, this isn't new to junior hockey. It's not new to other facilities that we have in Coaldale, like the curling club or anything else. So I would certainly like to support this.
Okay, thank you. Here we have a motion on the floor by Councillor Home. It's just purely option number 2 without the and, if council so chooses part of it. Any questions or concerns, discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Okay, and opposed? Okay, one opposed then? Thank you. All right. Thank you, delegation, for taking time, and good luck on the upcoming season. Hard to think about hockey right now, but okay, and then we have Tim up next, and Kaylin said something about you doing it a cappella or something like that. Okay.
The June 24th regular council meeting, administration was directed by council to report on any specific projects approved in the 2019-2021 capital budget where we might be able to take advantage of using debt financing versus funding directly through reserves or current operations. The purpose of the borrowing bylaw presented to you today is to use debt financing to fund the construction of the 8th Street Industrial Ring Road for the amount of $3,118,636. That was initially to be funded through the Northeast Industrial Lot Sales. The reason for this, the current borrowing rates that the town has available through Alberta Capital Finance Authority, they are lower than the current interest rates that the town is getting on investments. And so it makes economic sense to leverage debt and increase the return that we get on our investments. In this case, it would be the proceeds that we get from the Northeast Industrial Lot Sales. In order for this to work, we do need a borrowing bylaw for the capital project that must be passed before any costs are incurred for the project. Therefore, our recommendation is that council give first, second, and third reading for borrowing bylaw 760B0619.
Okay, thank you. Any questions through to Tim? So Tim, this proposal, it's matched the debt versus the asset, so the GIC that you buy and the debt repayment are all both 5-year terms. Would that be right, or?
Well, I guess it would depend on the timing of when the Northeast Industrial Lot Sales come in versus when the payments are due on the debenture. But the short-term loan would be for 5 years, and the payments would be made from the lot sales.
But like this proposal, when you show the net increase, the surplus revenue, you're contemplating a certain rate on the loan and a certain rate on the investment, right?
Right. The rate that we used for the loan is based on the ACFA rates.
Right.
Those are available online.
Yep.
The rates for investments are just kind of an average of what we are currently getting. They're conservative estimate, though, of the rates that we are getting on our GICs. which
we-
are 30, 60, 90, or up to 5 years as
Right.
well. So,
So there'd be a strategy to watch that because you don't want to get trapped into having a short-term
yes.
investment rate and then all of a sudden rates go down, get unfavorable, right?
Yes,
But
we
there's
would-
you're strategizing on matching that up properly, I guess.
Yeah, we would make sure that we get the rates that give us the better return.
Yeah. And if the borrowing climate changes between now and drawdown, I guess this strategy would be not implemented, right?
Yes.
Right. Councillor Holm?
Thank you to Tim. Is there any penalties for paying off this loan early? Just kind of following up on the mayor's comments that if all of a sudden our investments, the interest rates drop, and so we decide to, okay, rather than reinvest those GIs back into GICs, let's pay off the debt. I don't want us to incur penalties against that debt, early debt payment because of not being able to reinvest our money at a higher rate.
Right. I believe with ACFA there are penalties for paying off early, but with these being shorter term loans, there's the risk is a little bit reduced, I guess. And as well for the investment side, we could make it a point to try and invest in longer term secured rates.
Galen, you want to add anything?
Just a general comment. We have quite a diverse portfolio in terms of how we're managing the reserves. So some are in shorter term, some are just in a general savings account, others are in more intermediate term. So we're not putting all of our eggs in any one basket when it comes to the cash flow strategy. So if that kind of helps give you a sense of the balance that we have right now with our reserve management.
I'm sure we can't do any borrowing until September at the earliest anyway with the Alberta Capital Finance Authority because they only have windows every quarter. So the next one is September and then December after that. So that'd be like everybody said. I think the strategy is a sound one, and we all understand that it won't be implemented if anything in borrowing the Bank of Canada rate or whatnot makes it unprofitable, I guess.
Right. And in the bylaw it says we the rate is set at a max of 3%. So we wouldn't borrow if it was above that.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Holm?
I'll just make a motion for the first reading of the borrowing
Okay,
bylaw.
good. Thank you. Okay, we have Councillor Simpson sponsoring first reading of the borrowing bylaw as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Councillor Holm?
I move second reading.
Thank you. We have Councillor Holm sponsoring second reading. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay. And the motion for unanimous consent to hold all three. Councillor Pauls moves for the motion for unanimous consent to hold all three readings in one meeting. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay. And now the floor is open for third reading. Councillor Lloyd moves for third reading of the bylaw. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have item 7.1, the solid waste analysis. And the floor is yours, Keelan.
The PowerPoint no, should be in your email inbox. So we're just going to be pulling up a PowerPoint. It's a way to condense a fairly long, complicated report into 17 slides. So it's just a way to keep me focused so I don't read from the whole thing. But we do have a report here on our waste handling. So up until now, We've had a couple of staff reports to council on the collection aspect of our waste management program. And what we're going to be looking at today is the handling aspect, like what happens after the waste is collected. Okay, that was 2 slides right there. Now I need my prompts. Sure, please, thanks. Oh. Okay, in case we have technical difficulty, I have a keyboard as well. So the purpose of this report then is to provide a well-rounded overview of the town's current waste handling practices, as well as a recommendation on how we may be able to improve service, reduce cost, and enhance the environmental benefits of the town's waste management program. So some contextual considerations looking at this from about 100,000 foot level, maybe higher, more the global national scale. Municipalities across North America we're all facing real challenges with respect to our waste handling programs. The Chinese National Sword Program, for example, which began in February 2018, made it substantially more difficult to cheaply and easily dispose of typical recycling waste that was generated by long-standing municipal programs. That in turn had a major ripple effect on how recyclables were handled in municipalities across North America. A recent study that was prepared by the global consulting firm Deloitte, and that was on behalf of the Environment and Climate Change Canada Department, suggests that there is a significant room for improvement in terms of how Canada and its municipalities handles its recycling, particularly as it relates to plastics. The report, highlighted in a recent article published in the Globe and Mail, suggested that of the 3.2 million tons of plastic waste generated each year in Canada, only around 9% is actually recycled, and as much as 2.8 million tons of plastic ultimately is placed in a landfill each year. This might be a little bit hard to see, but it's quite a powerful diagram. So right here, this represents all of the plastics that were discarded in Canada. And then here's the distribution of where the plastics go. So this amount here, 305,000 tons, goes to a recycling plant. 137,000 tons goes to a waste energy recovery facility. They estimate that 29,000 tons is lost or leaked. And then the rest ends up in a landfill, that 2.8 million tons of plastic. And just kind of a fun fact for you, that's roughly 24 times the weight of the CN Tower. And plastic, takes up a lot of room. It's not so much heavy, so I'm sure the CN Tower weighs quite a lot. So this image was generated by Deloitte, published in the Globe and Mail, and provides us a bit of a North American snapshot in a Canadian context of where we're at with this industry. So at the federal level, some policy considerations here. Waste in general, it's a set of policy issues that extend far beyond the scope of what the town of Coaldale can reasonably address. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently announced, for example, the federal government's plans to aggressively change Canada's dependence on plastics, closely following the model chosen by the European Union in March 2019. And this is a policy statement that's consistent with some international commitments such as the Ocean Plastics Charter, which was signed on to by Canada and other countries at the G7 summit in Charlevoix, Quebec in June 2018. Canada's Federal Minister of Environment, Catherine McKenna, stated that the federal government is working on a plan to have Canadians reuse or recycle all plastics or burn them for energy within the next 20 years. So you can see there's some fairly high-level, lofty policy statements that go far beyond, our community, but all municipalities, regardless, are all sharing in the same consequence. What's going on in some other markets in the province of Alberta? How are other municipalities handling this global ripple effect? So, City of Calgary, they've had that traditional blue cart curbside pickup to a materials recovery facility model for about a decade. They own and operate the facility, and they're ultimately in control of sorting and selling the products into global markets. Calgary was impacted by the China's National Sword Program as well, and this created a major backlog in their materials recovery facility, and they had to stockpile a bunch of materials until they could find other markets to ship it to. So Calgary is an example where they not only own and operate, they do the brokering, the selling. It's a very municipal owned at all levels of the program. Airdrie, being in quotes a bedroom committee, everything's relative. They're about 100,000 people, but they're a bedroom committee to Calgary. And basically, Calgary is their solution to waste. So the solutions and the policy changes that are happening in Calgary, they're also going to affect Airdrie. Calgary is going to be putting a number of restrictions on what they're willing to handle. They've already banned all paper and cardboard, and organics are slated to be banned from their landfills in 2019. And we anticipate there'll be additional restrictions and bans. So the only way to respond is for Airdrie to adapt their programs so that it meets the needs of the landfill they rely on. So they've had no choice but to adopt a curbside program. City of Lacombe has recently canceled their curbside recycling program in their entirety due to escalating costs, while acknowledging that this is not a reasonable medium or a long-term solution to this global phenomenon, but it is something they've had to do because of the cost consequence and the inability to find partners that can easily broker their recyclables. The City of Lethbridge has recently constructed a materials recovery facility that will sort and manage recycling as part of the newly implemented Blue Bin program. While this infrastructure provides a local drop-off option for recyclables for the town of Coaldale that did not exist when the town started its curbside recycling program in 2012, it comes with a complicated fine strategy for those loads which are deemed to be contaminated. Garbage loads, for example, that are contaminated with recyclables. We'll start with a $50 a ton surcharge that's above and beyond the tipping fee of what will become $150 a ton. And that's the forecast. It's difficult to say what even in 5 years from now this will look like. Contamination is set right now at 25%. So there is some margin of error. But to simply just cancel a Blue Bin program just to have them dumped straight into the Lethbridge landfill, it'd be cost prohibitive for the town. So although it's expensive with what we're doing now in terms of having them shipped to Crossfield, Alberta, it would also be expensive to just simply dump them into the city landfill. So keeping the Blue Bin has merit. It's just a matter of exploring other alternatives on what happens with those recyclables. So this graph here shows you a bit of a table. So this is the garbage tonnage in 2016, 2017, 2018. The blue is the recycling, so it's fairly constant. And then the green is the introduction. 2018 is the year that curbside compost was introduced. So the main conclusion I would draw from this table is that the curbside compost has a direct impact on the reduction of the amount of garbage that went into the landfill. So if there was one thing I could take away from this table, that would be my takeaway. And then in this table here, it's the cost to tip by type and year. So the cost to tip on an annual basis is here in garbage. Oh. Sorry, I had another table. It is in the staff report. It's wrong in the PowerPoint, but the staff report overrules. Just want to grab that page for a second. Okay, my apologies. So table 2 on page 11 of your staff report. So I'm just going to... Oh. Okay, Lana's to the rescue. Okay. Page 11. There, that's a little better. I was going to say, I just explained this table. So table 2 here, this marks on a graph the cost per ton year over year, stemming back from 2016. So the main takeaway here is that although the compost had an impact on the amount of waste diversion from the landfill, the prices of the landfill are still increasing. So each year over year, the aggregate cost to tip our garbage has gone up, but Had we not had the compost bin, it would be this black line here marking the cost for the garbage would be quite a bit higher. So the curbside compost bin, it's kind of holding steady. The part that hasn't really dropped, in fact, it's steadily increased, is the aggregate cost to tip the recyclables. And looking at the forecast with the city, there are the surcharges, but also the amount per ton for garbage is going up year over year. And then you add in potential penalties on top of the already increasing tipping fees. We have to start thinking of solutions today. Otherwise, these costs will get downloaded onto the consumer. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. So another portion of the report, now that we've kind of looked at the big picture, now coming down to more the local scale, we've summarized a collection of feedback that we've received over the past couple of years from residents, be that from surveys, emails, meetings. Residents largely support the concept of recycling, but there's been concern that we have little information about how ultimately the products from the Blue Bin program are used and where they end up once they're taken there. We know they go to Crossfield, but where do they go from Crossfield? That's a question. Many residents would appreciate the opportunity to access their compost for household use. Is there a community compost pickup site, for example? A local consistent location for branch drop-off would be appreciated. We've received some frustration, not just from existing residents, but also residents who are newly annexed into the town of Coaldale. The waste transfer station at the county, does it or does it not accept green branches? In the agreement with them, it does. However, the response that they've been getting from the operator has been that no, you have to pay, or you have to take it to Iron Springs. And then in response to that, we've had some branch drop-off opportunities at the town shop. But we've historically, that was on a drop-in basis. Now we've selected advertised dates. The important thing to keep in mind is that is a work site with heavy equipment, and just to have residents drive in or walk around at a work site, it's not safe. And then it's also quite cost prohibitive for the town to chip the mountain of branches that are ultimately collected at the town yard. So there's a lot of room for improvement on green branch drop-off, both in terms of convenience and as well as the economics. There's also significant frustration with respect to how the recycling depot across from the town shop, not to be confused with the bottle depot, is operated. Common complaints include irregular hours, a lack of manpower, a lack of clarity about what can be dropped off there. And then overarchingly, program costs, mainly tipping, are going up, and there's very little Coaldale can do about it with the current model. Because there is no internal capacity to handle waste of any sort, we are fundamentally at the mercy of other service providers whose costs are going up, largely without consequence, and we don't have much of an alternative but to pay the bill. So I'm kind of building up here. So this goes from global struggles to more of a local opportunity. The good news is that there are positive case studies throughout Canada that provide us with good news success stories where the liability of municipal waste has been transformed and leveraged into economic gains and environmental wins. We are seeing evidence of this in BC and Ontario. There's funding opportunities that have been created at federal and provincial levels of government for the purpose of reducing waste. And there's evidence of innovation in technology that you see at conferences, trade shows. So what we're proposing to council is the opportunity to create a Maiden Coaldale solution. Coaldale has a number of things going for it over the course of the past year and doing research, talking to other municipalities. We believe that we have the makings to make this an attractive RFP. Tipping costs are going up if we maintain the status quo or if we tip at the new recycling facility at the city. So what are the key ingredients to a Maiden Coaldale solution? So what you see right here, that is our wastewater lagoons that are partially frozen, but this is our stormwater treatment lagoons. And what you see here in that border there, this is all, actually all of this, but This land here, it is owned by the town of Coaldale. You already have a wastewater treatment facility that's here. There's proper setbacks around it. And, this land would fall within that same setback. So we're looking at this as an opportune location for the handling of solid waste because it's right next to other waste. So there is the availability of land, and from a planning perspective, we think this would be the ideal spot compared to, say, putting it in the town's industrial park. Putting it next to a different business would not be as complementary as next to the lagoon. This would be the presentation of a public-private partnership model. While the town has land next to a major municipal utility, we can also construct and lease out a basic building for processing, and an operator or business can lease it from the town to manage the solid waste through various manufacturing and or processing means. Because this land is located next to a major utility, it's not recommended that we sell this land to a private entity at this time. We still have quite a bit of master planning to do with our own utility, and retaining ownership gives us a lot more control over our largest utility. We also see economic benefits to have a business locate on this area on the map, as right now it's underutilized and currently yielding zero in tax revenue and creating zero jobs. There's also opportunities for synergies between waste handling in terms of our curbside composting and recycling, and the town's wastewater treatment system, which is due for upgrades. So we're looking at cogeneration of power opportunities. Our engineers have also looked at innovative treatment technologies that could mesh with some of the same treatment methodologies that are used for curbside organics. So what are some of the anticipated benefits? What does the ideal scenario look like? If executed properly, Maiden Coaldale solution would benefit the environment and enhance service for no extra cost. That would be the ideal. So for example, by having the curbside organics and recyclables dropped off next to our lagoon site, instead of traveling to Crossfield, we think that'll have some service benefits for trucks because it reduces the amount of time that they're on the roadway, thereby decreasing the amount of time it takes them to complete their route. By creating an opportunity for organics as well as recyclables, we could enhance our ability to provide a broader range of drop-off services for oversized loads, such as a permanent branch drop-off location. If it's our land, we design the site properly, we could create a community drop-off location for branches that would mesh well, that would be in a separate location from the actual handling of the other waste. Having a Maiden Coaldale solution would also provide residents with substantially more clarity in terms of where their recyclable goes and for what purpose once they're collected. By posting an RFP, we will be asking leaders in the field of waste management to respond to what we feel is an attractive public-private partnership proposal where the town agrees to provide the land, underground services, and a building shell, and the proponents agree to do something innovative inside it. So the cost to put together an RFP for a Maiden Coaldale solution, I provide a bit of a general estimate of what this step in the process would be. Staff time, approximately 45 hours, largely from salaried employees. It's difficult to quantify this, but it is time, it is a consideration. We feel that it's important as well to engage an external consultant who specializes in solid waste management to assist us in the evaluation of submittals to the RFP so that they can advise on the technologies being advanced. This would be a cost of $10,000 to $15,000. There's also the cost to procure a site servicing plan and a preliminary building concept to accompany the RFP, $10,000, giving us a total cost of $25,000 that we recommend taking from the solid waste capital reserve. So the long-term environmental and economic forecast, the answer to this question, it's largely going to depend on the types of responses that we get to the RFP, what kind of economic terms are associated with it, what types of technology. Right now, what we're asking from council is permission to post the RFP, knowing that the cost consequence is $25,000, so that we can bring back to you the scored and analyzed submittals before asking council to make a decision in terms of the next step, which may involve, that's where it's going to involve the cost and the capital to get the whole site set up. So to summarize, If council sees merit in this, you're saying yes to posting the RFP, but you're not committing to any long-term direction. We'll come back to you once there are responses to an RFP, they've been analyzed and vetted, and then we'll have a discussion on what next steps looks like from there. So there are four main options available to council. You're free to add to this list. The first one is that council receive the report for information. Option 2, that council direct administration to return with additional information prior to making a decision on how to move forward with respect to the town's waste handling practices. Option 3, that council direct administration to undertake efforts to post a request for proposal that solicits bids for a Maiden Coaldale solution for handling the organics and recyclables collected as a result of the town's blue and green bin programs. Further, that council direct administration to retain consultants as required to assist with assembling a Maiden Coaldale solution for the processing, handling of recyclables and organics. And further, that council direct administration to continue researching alternative tipping options for garbage disposal, both short and long term, including continued collaboration with the Southern Alberta Energy from Waste Association, SAOA. Option 4, that council determine an alternative course of action as they see fit. So from the staffing perspective, our recommendation is option 3. We see for $25,000 to put together an RFP, that's fairly small dollar amount given the potential reward and the rising costs that we see on our waste handling horizon.
Thank you, Kalen. Any questions by council? Councillor Holm?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Kalen, I'm not sure we got all the information we need to make a decision on this. First, I'd really like to know what would Lethbridge charge for us to take our recycling there. We know what it costs us to send it to Crossfield, but we don't have a cost for Lethbridge, and Lethbridge just came up with a facility, so that may be the cheapest and best option we have. We move our recycling 15 kilometers west. So I'd like to know that. Second part of it is, what does Picture Butte, Tabor, Raymond, etc., other small communities do with their recycling? Have we reached out to them to say if the Lethbridge option or the Crossfield option are not viable? Have we reached out to them to say, so should we be looking at a joint facility? You know, I like the Maiden Coaldale, but Coaldale's only, and I won't say the number yet because Lana, that's her presentation next. As far as we're not a big enough community, I don't think, to have this Maiden Coaldale all by ourselves facility. I don't think we have the tonnage to make it worthwhile, just in my opinion. So I'd really like to have those questions answered before I can make any decision on this one.
Councillor Holm? Gutman?
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and I wholeheartedly support Councillor Holmes' thoughts moving forward. I'm really curious as to where Southern Alberta Energy from Waste Alliance, or Association, I guess it is, are standing, because I support them wholeheartedly, and we've spent a lot of resource time and membership with that association. And I guess the short and long for me is that I would dearly like them to get started right away, and even if that's the Maiden Coaldale solution for Southern Alberta, because it might be the regional concept that we have to go with to get the tonnage that Councillor Holm is talking about, and you know, centralize it here is really where I kind of see that picture unfolding, because that concept to me, hearing what's going on in other parts of the country and other parts of the world even, that that kind of process for dealing with contaminated items, including plastics and others, can be centralized to a system that SAWA has. So that would be my support.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure, I'll just start on Councillor Chapman's just because it was the most recent. This concept is looking at organics and recyclables only, not garbage, which is, as I understand, the primary focus of Sayawa. We'd all like them to get started as well, but they're waiting for $500+ million for that startup. And that's outside of our control. And how long can you wait? So that would be my comment on the Sayawa thing. I think Councillor Holm has a really good question about the Lethbridge. We have been given a price schedule from them, and we're looking at, Cam would have some of these numbers because we have been looking at their price sheet. We have been in discussions with them. And I'll turn it over to Cam on how that works, and then we can close the loop from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So the current price to tip recyclables at the Lethbridge facility is $150 a ton, or tone, I should say. That's today's price, which is obviously higher. Like right now, garbage tipping rates are $105 a ton, and those will be going up to $115 a ton imminently if they haven't already. Also, so that's the immediate answer, right? The immediate answer is $150 a ton. The issue here that we're also trying to address that I would suggest requires some consideration is the fact that one of the struggles Coaldale has is that we have no control of our destiny with respect to these types of things. If Lethbridge's landfill is $115 a ton next month, or if the recycling facility is $150 a ton next month, we have no ability to lock in that price for any period of time. It could be $130 by September, or sorry, it could be $300 by September. We just have to pay it, right? Which is fine. Ultimately, we have to find ways to handle all of our waste, be it black or green or blue bin. But one of the things that we think is worth exploring is the concept of having a certain degree of control to see if there is a market for us to be in this business or to be involved with others who are in this business, who have the ability to make things work, possibly in conjunction with the city of Lethbridge, possibly competing within the same market space as them. This is not something that I think anyone is suggesting we take on ourselves, but rather we think it's something that's worth exploring. The short answer to this particular report is that all waste handling, be it from a black bin or a blue bin or a green bin or what have you, is a cost that is substantial for the town's operations currently, and it is a cost that we have no reason to forecast will become cheaper on its own in the near or long-term future. Expectations for how effectively we handle waste are only likely to increase over time, as they have over the last period of time, and the cost of doing business is just going to keep going up. So we think it makes sense to explore whatever options are available to us now to sort of see if there's a way that we can mitigate some of that going forward. And that's fundamentally, I think, what the proposal at this point is. Is that fair?
Yeah, and just one other quick comment. It'd be great if more people on the region got on side. That's certainly in the intent, but we're not experts in the brokerage or the handling or the technologies for solid waste handling. So that's why it is a public-private partnership where we do what we're good at. Here's some land, we'll provide the services, here's the building shell, and then the industry does something awesome with it. And hopefully it's Coaldale and a bunch of other waste streams, but we don't know enough about that market or industry to start the door knocking. It's almost the industry knows the market better than we do. So that's why this would be an invitation for us to present, here's what we have at our disposal. We're on a limited time window because we are looking at design for wastewater, what's out there, and that's what the RFP process is going to hopefully uncover for us. Now, we do have a special council meeting now in July, so if council wants more information, we might be able to tack a follow-up to this on that meeting that you just set if there's different questions, but we're looking at more as this as an opportunity to turn some rocks over to see if we can get a better deal than what we're going to be facing with the city of Lethbridge, because $150 a ton, that's not cheap either. That's actually quite expensive. So is it worth potentially 25,000 to turn the rock over to see if we can get something significantly less than the $150 a ton? And are there other service enhancements that we can get in the organics realm as well? Because currently we pay tipping of about $50 or $60 a ton for organics. So is there a way we can put all these different pieces together, look at some cogeneration for the powering of our wastewater treatment facility? Like, these answers have to be known before the engineers can start designing the wastewater treatment facility. So we can provide more information, that's no problem. I'm just concerned that if it were to drag on too long, at some point, some of the design for other things that we've kind of held off on just for these synergies, we're going to start to get behind schedule. So that would be my only cautionary note.
Councillor Holm?
Thank you, Your Worship. Want to get into this too much one-on-one, but if I go to page 11 of your report, looks like right now we're spending about $260 a ton tipping for our recycling right now. So $150 a ton to the city of Lethbridge sounds to me like a real big bargain. And because we have a number of these facilities that are brand new in Alberta, I'm not sure whether we need an RFP or whether we just need somebody to talk to the city of Lethbridge to say, how much did it cost to build your facility and some of these others that have just gone in. I'm not sure we need to spend $25,000 to get answers that we may already be able to get for nothing.
I think this isn't the first time that this kind of concept at the site's been under discussion, and I think the bigger takeaway is is there a partnership in which we can work with that, a provider that can provide cogeneration to power up our wastewater answer, and ultimately, I think that would be one of the big benefits of it. So I think that is a keystone of sort of what we're driving toward here. I don't think that there's any problem in keeping an open mind about what other partnerships might be there, whether we collaborate with the county of Lethbridge and those other rurals on concepts or thoughts on things. I think all like Kaylin says, turning over some rocks is probably a great idea, but I think what we're fundamentally trying to get at would be that cogen and the partnership at the wastewater area, because I think that drives a lot of the economy of that operation, and the sizing and the planning and detailed design that facility will evolve into. With regards to Cam's other discussion, that's been more or less Coaldale's Achilles heel, is that we're at the control of other people that, I'm with SEWA, and I sit there with, a number of, over 14 different waste authorities, and they can manipulate their, they have ownership, they have, they have some governorship, governance over that, and they have some control over what they're doing. Coaldale right now is just a buyer of services, really, where we have to basically take the price that people are offering. And so I think I like the elements of this, that it gives us some option to maybe, put some aspects of what we're doing in the municipal solid waste field into some kind of a asset for the better benefit of our ratepayers and whatnot. SEWA is going to be, they're in the siting process right now, and they hope, they have the Gantt chart, and we're looking at probably end of August, September, to sort of get into the shortlisting of the different sites that are out there, and then move along and do some engineering to prove out those sites. And like Kaylin says, there is a chance that, the next thing is to do once the site's there, to make the ask for the money to build something and whatnot. So we're hopefully around the corner for that, but the SEWA facility isn't after. I think this still leaves all the municipal solid waste on the table, and that's what the SEWA doesn't want any recyclables anyway, so we're not really going for that. So, I would support the concept, but, I like, what Councillor Holmes saying in the respect of, having our eyes wide open at what else, what all is out there in the potential. Because like you say, if you go out and build a MRF on your own, that's quite a big undertaking, and those facilities are mechanical in nature, and they have lots of maintenance and equipment and ongoing operating costs and whatnot. So it's not you need a lot of scale to make those worthwhile as well. But it doesn't hurt to look at what our potential is, because just being a buyer of services isn't put Coaldale in a very enviable spot either. So I like the direction of trying to, try and get a little bit more control on some aspects of what we're paying for. Councillor Simpson?
I'll make a motion for option 3.
Any discussion? Can you roll up option number 3? There. Basically, that's option 3. That's basically option 3 right there. It's just restated a couple times. Okay. Give everybody a minute to look at that. Okay, Councillor, discussion, Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. Do we need to have in there including contained collaboration with Sawa? Like, why are we naming them in this motion?
Go ahead, Kellen.
The thought process was just to show that we're not trying to go it alone from them. So if someone were to read our minutes in isolation from the staff report that would have accompanied it, then they could see that this is a different handling solution from the business niche of Sawa. That would be the only reason. We're already doing that third paragraph. It was inserted there more just for information.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, going once, twice. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and opposed? Councillor Holm? So that was your favor? Yeah. All right, thank you. Hey, now the Lana's crown jewel, she gets the... Are you going to steal Lana's thunder, Kellen?
Am I being asked to steal her thunder?
It's right there anyway.
So Lana did an excellent job and her team on the census. We do have a full census debrief coming to council in September, including discussion on how the new iPad electronic technology worked that made tabulating easy. You could monitor in real time. So I wasn't allowed to participate in any prediction pools because I had some analytics that others didn't. But we do have a population of 8,691, and that's a 5.8% increase from the town's population in 2016. And that was the federal census process. So this has been notified to the public. We've had some media interest on doing a story on this, but this just formally closes the loop with council that we're 8691, and we're in the process of dealing with our outdated entry signage. So
when you say that, can you clarify how we're going to deal with the outdated? We're just going to no longer update the numbers, or what? What's the...
Yeah, the intent for now would just be take down the populations altogether, because they do go outdated on a regular basis. If there is a means of having if there's a desire for having the population noted on signage, we're going to come up with a a more pragmatic solution to do that for people, because every year or two we're always having to modify signs, and it gets tacky to keep putting on, taking off populations. So if they go missing, it's not an act of vandalism. There is a purpose behind it.
Well, I support that because I'd rather have nothing up there than data that's 10 or 15 years old. So maybe we could coordinate with the hospital and the funeral parlor and have a digital sign that updates daily or something. But yeah. I want to, before I turn it over for questions, I want to thank the census staff for all their hard work and whatnot. I think that I did enumerating in a few years back, and then, door knocking on campaigns and that, and sometimes it's hard to get people to even answer the doorbell, so I can imagine the challenge of amassing a census of the whole town and whatnot. So it's not a small achievement to complete a municipal census. So thank you very much to Lana and her team for doing that. And I am disappointed that it's not a little over 9,000, but next time. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Worship. I think we were all hoping for that number, and I'm just grateful for all the work that's been done to get us to this point, and all the community who have supported the census in taking it. My question is the official time when this would be not only released, but when it becomes official, when it becomes our number for grants and that, when do we make that, when does that occur?
Hey, Lana. But I think they have a lagging effect to where they don't really utilize our numbers until 2020 for the 2019 census and that. So, but it looks pretty good, and we got a return on the investment anyway. I think we got enough numbers to pay for the census anyway. So with yeah. Yeah, it's just receive. Yeah, is that your motion? That Councillor Chapman moves to receive the census report for information. All in favor? Okay. And then we have item 8.2 and 8.3. Cindy is here to share in the glory of those big numbers there.
Yeah, so in front of you, you have the June update that I send every month at the end of the month, and then I have the second quarter 5-year comparison, which I do one for you every quarter. June was our busiest month so far by one permit, but the amount, the value of development permits was up significantly by almost $4 million in June from March.
Any questions through that, Cindy? Okay, thank you. Councillor Holm moves items 8.2 and 8.3. Is that right, for information? All in favor? Okay, thank you, Cindy. And Tim, you're really getting your share of the glory with Kyle being away. 8.4.
Thank you again. So first of all, I would like to recognize the amazing staff we have at the front. They did an amazing job in the past few weeks, just answering phone calls, taking payments at the front, and addressing everyone's concerns that they had. Yeah, and things would not have gone as smoothly if it was me and Kyle up there. So they did a great job. So the 2019 tax collection report, the dollar amounts, they change year to year, but the percentages, so the rates, the tax collection rates are fairly consistent since, let's say, 2016. So they've been, as of the deadline, we typically collect 79 to 80% of the taxes that are owing. If you take out the tip customers or the people that are on the tip program, you get to the actual amount that is owing as of the deadline. So the tip, the number of people on tip are increasing each year, which is nice to see. And I guess the recommendation here is that council receive this report for information.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any questions through the Tim? Yeah, it's quite a job for the people in the office to be open for the month of June and receive the incoming traffic. I don't, there's probably, you can count them on one hand, the number of people that are really, really, really happy to pay taxes. So it's, yeah, I imagine it's not necessarily the most pleasant environment for a little while, but you know, as having said that, I'm sure most people are quite. I've heard feedback that there wasn't a great deal of angst or anxiety either. So thank you again to the corporate services team for all their work on this. And without further ado, maybe somebody might care to make a motion to receive the property tax update for information. Councillor Lloyd makes that motion. All in favor? Okay, opposed, if any? None? All right, and then we have a round table, and so who wants to lead us off? Councillor Holm, I'll give you first kick at the cat if you want to.
Got a number of them, but probably most of them could go into closed session. But I guess first one I have, number of residents in our neighborhood are really complaining about. Number of residents in our area are really complaining about gophers along the canal and along the quads and the storage lagoons. They're starting to move into the gardens off of 24th and 25th and a number of areas there, and okay, so be it. And then I know that we had a couple of young gentlemen, I don't know, 10 or 12 years old, got somebody's pellet pistol and were taking care of them themselves, and the RCMP were called about it, and et cetera. So anyways, I think we need to start looking at what we can do about that situation, because the whole ground's moving over there now.
Where's this in particular?
Yeah, basically from the crossover on 13th Street east to whatever would be 10th or 11th, that whole area, and the whole area around the storage lagoons, between the canal and the storage lagoons, that whole area from the quads all the way to 8th Street is just basically moving with them. And of course, the town did a really good job of eliminating them in the quads and in the soccer fields in the spring. But if you go there now, somebody's going to break an ankle, because there's a lot of gopher holes in both those areas now. Second one I had was phone in the pool. See, beat you to it. I've had some complaints or some comments about kids that don't have a cell phone asking to use the phone to phone their parents to come pick them up, and been told they can't, and so they're going over to Stop and Go in other places. So I think we need to set a policy to let the kids phone home if they need to. Certainly it wouldn't be used for personal use except to phone to get a ride if they need to. But I think we need to set that policy, so I'll leave that to administration, I think, to take care of that. The other one I had here was the fireworks. Everybody I talked to thought that the fireworks this year, as well as the entire Settlers' Day, but I just want to speak specifically to the fireworks, a lot of people thought that they were fabulous. And I've had a number of people come up to me in the last day and a half saying, so is that going to be an annual event? And I think it might be worth our while during budgeting process, November, December, January, to find out what the real cost of the fireworks were, and see what the impact would be if we built that in as an annual event. And the last ones I'm going to leave for closed session.
Okay, and then, yeah, like you say, a number of people made it known about the pool thing and that, and so it's, I think, like Councillor Simpson was sharing about on Facebook and that, and I guess the nice would be to be able to get a communication out to encourage people just to contact through the Coaldale contact system so that we can, rather than trying to use Facebook as a conduit to that. Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and I just want to share my accolades to the Centennial Celebrations Committee led by Cindy Hoffman, who has done all the heavy lifting for the town and for the community. I'm not going to name everybody, but all the community groups who really got in behind Settler Days weekend, and the town staff who came out at all hours to put things together. Our emergency services department for all their hard work behind the scenes, and in particular with the fireworks as well. I know that they were very nervous initially with the weather, and I think the rain that just came in just before then really put things together for them, so that there really wasn't that anticipation of any arising issues. So people are wanting to know some numbers. I don't have any official numbers, but the people who handed out chalk to go on the sidewalks handed out 5,000 pieces of chalk. So you do the math on that, and if it's anything real, that if each child got a piece of chalk, plus all the parents and grandparents who were there, there'd be a large crowd all the way around the parade site, or parade route. Plus, we had about 91 entries into the parade this year, which really makes it a record, I think, in terms of longevity and participation in the parade. So I just wanted to thank all those community groups that really made things happen in our community over the weekend, putting things together and take down, and all of the behind-the-scenes work.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Simpson.
Can I just go ditto on Roger or Councillor Holmes? I had the same complaint about gophers on 25th Avenue, and then yes, we do need to make sure the kids can phone home for a ride. That really needs to be a priority.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lloyd. Okay, Councillor Pauls. Okay, Councillor Avery. All right.
Thank you, Worship. A couple things. One thing I'd like, if administration can look and get some analysis on by our September 9th meeting on moving our council meetings back to 5 o'clock, what the pros and cons, the benefits, the costs, all of that. And the other thing that I've been asked about is our summer's just about half gone, and we talked about walkways along 845, 30th Avenue, and 17th Street. Do we know where any of that is at yet?
Through to Councillor Avery. We're at this stage finalizing the required lands for the construction. We don't actually own the land along the east boardwalk along 845. So we're looking to acquire that. And in terms of the pathway along 17th Street, we need additional road right-of-way in order to put a suitable pathway next to the road that's there. We do have design concepts in mind for all the other parts for the pathway expansion.
Okay, I thought originally we were told it was going to go down in the ditch on 17th, so we didn't have to acquire or do any road work. There was going to be something designed on the west side of the road in the ditch, so that way the kids had a safer place to walk when they went out to the park.
Okay, I'll have to get an update from our engineering team if we start getting into those kind of details. The last I was given to understand is that we don't have all the required right-of-way to complete the pathway, but I can check and have them do a follow-up, direct to council on that.
That it?
That's it.
Okay. So I think administratively, are you okay with the direction regarding the gophers and the phone at the pool? What round table discussions should be formalized by way of resolution, if any?
Well, council could just make a resolution directing administration to get back to them on these items. And if it's something that's not in the budget, or we need a policy, then some resolutions will be required when it gets brought back up to a council. But at a minimum, we can close the loop with information, and if we need a follow-up resolution, then we can take that to council. I don't see anything in here that would require additional follow-up resolutions in respect to policy or budget that we can't do administratively.
Councillor Simpson?
The only thing I'm concerned about is with the pool, with the phone. If we wait till the next council meeting, end of July, that's half the season has gone. And, you know, you have a few weeks of kids, you know, going over to Stop and Go. Can we just put something in the meantime that they're able to phone home, or get a phone that's only available for them to use, that's only local calls?
Oh, certainly. Like, there are phones at the pool, so as of, you know, today, we can phone
Okay,
call and say
thank
the
you.
new policy is if someone needs to use the phone, they're allowed to use the phone. Like, that's, yeah, we can get that one done right away.
Could you maybe have that go out as soon as that goes live? Can you have that go out on the social media as well, I think?
You want it on social media?
Well, yeah, because that's where, yeah, just our town website to just say, just to enforce that it's a policy that the kids can do it. Okay, and then you can report back to us at the July meeting on that, and then we can deal with.
Yeah. The only question I'd have through to Councillor Holm, is that land potentially owned by St. Mary's between the decommissioned reservoirs and the canal and that?
It very likely is.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that they won't care if you go in and kill gophers.
Okay.
I mean, do what you need to do to move them.
Relocation.
Give them swimming lessons.
I think a former premier had a solution for that kind of a pest doing. So.
Okay.
Okay, all right. And that concludes roundtable. And then we have information items. So we have Lana did a report on the parade participation. And does anybody, you want to just let people update you if they have availabilities or whatnot? Yeah. And so receive 11.1 and 11.2 for information. Councillor Simpson, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Okay, thank you. And I think that deals with all the public part of the meeting, so a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Holm, all in favor? Okay. Take a 5-minute break, I guess.
Sorry, Ron.